This is the man who laid the foundation
Like, what was going through his mind?
of modern architecture in Japan, Kenzo Tange.
Dude was out of his goddamn mind. Now, Japan in the 60s, that's where the party was at. In less than 2 decades since the end of World War II, Japan had gone from rocks and rubble to bullet trains in cities that were concrete jungles. Japan was in the middle of a super economic miracle. And what do you do when you got a buttload of cash and you want to show the world your fancy new society? Well,
The games are awarded to the city of
you host the Olympics, of course.
Tokyo.
Tokyo is dressed in her holiday best for the opening of the 18th Modern Olympics.
僕が建築家になろうと思ったのは1964年に第1回目の東京オリンピックがちょうど僕が10歳の時に来て、それで、オリンピックのための、水泳の建物を丹下健三という建築家が作って。
On August 31st, 1964, only a mere 19 months, this monumental building, the National Stadium, was completed.
This was Japan's return to the big stage. And they showed up big time.
Award-winning architect Kenzo Tange was famous for designing the Yoyogi Gymnasium, a swimming arena for the 1964 Tokyo Olympics. It was seen as a symbol of Japan's return to the world stage after the Second World War.
Now, Tange grew up in a time where Japan was rapidly industrializing. And because of that, you'll start to see how that impacted his architectural style.
健三っていう建築家はいつもその時代が求めてるものを探して、64年のオリンピックの時はすごく時代がモニュメントっていうのものを求めていて、日本の伝統的建築っていうのはやっぱ建物はすごく小さい、それから建物はすごく低いんだけど、やっぱり周りとの環境と調和しているので、コンクリートっていうのは本当に20世紀の工業化社会にはすごく重要な素材だったけど、丹下健三が設計したオリンピックのスタジアムがコンクリートの、それからやっぱり形を大事にしたスタジアムだったのに対して、彼はすごくモニュメントをそれをうまく作ったわけですね。あまりにかっこよかったので、そういうものを作る人になりたいなと思って、それの日からずっと建築家になりたいなって夢見てました。
Now, I wasn't allowed inside because it looks like there's some kind of concert going on, but Tange was absolutely cooking when he built this building.
During the 1960s, Tange began to feel that what the world needed more than individual buildings was a sweeping vision.
人間の生活空間っていうのは建築の中で留まるだけじゃなくて、ずっともっと広がって都市的なスケールまで広がるし。
Like, the thing is, Tange basically inspired a whole architectural movement.
The idea of metabolism, really, the aesthetics of movement, everything in transformation, life cycles, birth, growth, that was the idea.
Now, one thing you gotta understand is Japan in general during this time was going through a phase of rapid transformation. Their cities had basically been annihilated due to the World War. So if you were an architect or someone growing up during this time, the idea of needing to adapt to rapid change was something that just you had to embody. And the Metabolist Movement definitely embodied that.
What I found incredibly interesting, there were all Japanese, all architects, all metabolists. Almost all of them had been not only affected by the atom bomb, but actually been in Hiroshima or Nagasaki days after. And from that moment on, became utterly idealistic visionaries and almost a sense of euphoria about life.
So they had this big meeting and they were like, we're gonna call this new architectural movement Metabolism, because it's organic and free-flowing and never-changing and whatever.
Mixing a kind of chamber for artists, intellectuals, architects. That's exactly what Kenzo Tange did in his Tange Lab 59.
They wanted to build these super mega structures that would lie on top of cities and would cover the ocean and just super out there crazy concepts that today would just not be practical. But I think that was a little bit of the beauty in it back then. They had no formula to go on. So they were like, well, f it, if someone's gonna pay for it, we'll do it. Now, if there's one thing you've come to learn about Tange, he was a little bit ambitious. And if you want to talk about ambition, we gotta talk about Tange's plan for Tokyo Bay.
建築家の領域を少し拡大しすぎたかもしれませんけれども。
City planning became a theme that would continue for the rest of Tange's life. In 1960, he presented a plan for a linear city across Tokyo Bay, connecting Tokyo with Chiba.
The plan for Tokyo Bay was insane, but that was a theme for Metabolist. They were f***ing insane. Now, if you're sitting here watching this video, you're probably logically thinking, how the hell did a government official look at that proposal and was like, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's build that. Like, what was going through his mind?
But we discovered a bureaucrat who also had been trained by Tange to be an architect. Tange positioned the bureaucrat in the main bureaucracy of Japan.
We started to realize that there was somebody like Shima Kobe, and that was something we had not expected at all, who really had adopted his role to actually enter bureaucracy and had really started to produce reality in that kind of way.
Now, as much as this is a video on Kenzo Tange, even I'm like, hold on a minute, buddy. You slow down a little bit. Like, dude was out of his goddamn mind when he was making that proposal.
建築家の領域を少し拡大しすぎたかもしれませんけれども。
Now, if you want a video on like kind of showing you how, you know, the plan of Tokyo Bay was really gonna look like, I recommend checking out Hoog's video. I'll leave a video in the description because he's got some 3D modeling ability that I'm not even gonna attempt to try. But you can go check it out. The thing is, when you're the guy starting a whole architectural movement, there's bound to be some guys who don't like what you're doing. And Tange, in terms of critics, had a lot of them.
僕の感じでは、例えば東京都庁がね、一番最初に脚光を浴びたとか問題になった、社会的問題になったのは、あの時に、僕はつくづく今でもそれ感じるんだけど、あんな都庁舎、あんなものは建物じゃないとか、あんなのはひどいもんだっていうことをね、とりわけ文化人ほとんどがそういう発言をして、週刊誌とかいろんなところで座談会まで開いて、あんなものはめちゃくちゃなもんだと。あの時本当に単元君が気の毒でしょうがなくてね、大いに悪口言われた方がいいんだと。俺の自説でね、本当の仕事をする人は誹謗され悪口言われ社会と戦わなきゃいけないんだってことを言ってプッシュしたんだけどね。
Now, the thing is, Tange was trying to pop off in Japan, but it wasn't like he was known internationally. But that changed
with Expo 70.
And so they come in droves to absorb the sights and sounds of the largest international exhibition held in history.
Every few years since basically like the 1800s, a bunch of countries would come together and they would have an Olympics, but for cultures and ideas. In London, it was all about the great exhibition of industry. In Vienna, it was all about the culture. And in Osaka, Japan, it was going to be all about progress and harmony for mankind. And what better man to design such a theme than Kenzo Tange himself?
The 1970s Expo was Tange's big chance to show the world what his architectural movement was all about.
下手をいたしますと、おもちゃ箱をひっくり返したようになってしまうのが今までの万博の世界的な経験であるわけであります。やはりそれに対しても何がしかの構造を与えてあげなければいけないと考えたわけでありまして、私はそれを木に例えまして枝をきちっと与えておけばそこにいろんな形の花が咲いても一応全体としては何か調和が保てるのではないかというふうに考えました。
By creating a solid foundation with the space frame roof and the Tower of the Sun as like the trunk and the pedestrian pathway as the branches, Tange created a structured system that connected the pavilions. And by keeping the foundation all covered in white, he allowed the architects from each country and company to show up and show off their unique architectural designs and colors, creating one of the most successful and memorable expos in history.
Expo has been described sometimes by itself as the world of tomorrow. If this is what is to come, then many of the buildings are indeed futuristic. But at Expo's conclusion, everything must come down and the site restored to its original condition. It's part of the contract.
Today, although most of the expo was taken down and turned into a park, a few commemorative structures still remain. Okamoto Taro's Tower of the Sun, which stands in the center of the park, this guy who was popping off earlier, still stands today, with the exhibit inside still preserved, which, by the way, I highly recommend checking out. Oh, and speaking of preserved...
And what you see behind me right here is the last remnant of the space frame roof. Now, the Osaka Expo was interesting for a few reasons. Like, the event broke attendance records, and Tange was getting all the clout. These events put together propelled Tange from being, okay, you know, maybe he's that guy, to like, no, he's definitely that guy. Tange became one of the most sought-after architects in the world, and this dude was going around building buildings all over the world, cementing himself as one of the greatest architects of well, not my generation, but like the last generation. Yeah. I'm not a boomer.
And that's some pretty great success for someone who started out designing colonies, that is.
Now, Tange was deeply influenced by this like French guy named Le Corbusier or something. I mean, I'm not an architect guy, but I'm pretty sure he was a legend. Now, Tange, after reading some works by this like super famous French guy, was like, damn, I want to do architecture. You see, Tange going to the University of Tokyo was a big deal because that's where he met Kunio Maekawa.
Corbusier, Maekawa, you know what these dudes had in common? They were both at the forefront of the modernist architectural movement. But you see, architects don't just design buildings out of thin air. They need money, and that's either coming from some rich bish or the government. And what do you think the government wants you to build when they are on an imperial conquering spree? Colonies, of course.
And that is a very important thing to understand about the Metabolist. A seemingly progressive movement actually started by going to war.
You see, one thing Japan's always struggled with is a lack of natural resources. Japan is a country made up of a bunch of islands, and on those islands are a bunch of mountains. So if you ever wondered why Japan went imperial, it's because they just needed some resources, right guys? The super duper mega co-prosperity sphere was their way of fixing that. Too bad it involved a little touch of genocide.
First, an invasion of Manchuria. And then China.
Manchuria had a lot of things Japan didn't. Super open grasslands, you know, an abundance of farmland.
All of which, of course, made for the ideal colonial settlement. And for Tange, who was working under Maekawa at this time, this would be one of the first projects he ever worked on. Tange's idea for these sort of large-scale urban transformations was heavily influenced by his time spent on the Manchurian project.
The truth is, we don't really know how Tange felt about the Manchurian project, because the truth was, he never spoke about it. Like, Tange could have been that guy who was known for developing colonies. But instead of colonies, he was about to build a memorial.
On August 2nd, 1945, Tange was notified of his father's death and headed to his hometown of Imabari. But when he arrived, he discovered that his mother had just been killed in an air raid. And just when Tange was devastated by the loss of both his parents, an atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, the city where he had spent happy years as a boy. Tange had lost all that mattered to him, literally overnight.
All right, I got a question for you. How do you make someone feel something without actually saying anything? Okay, pain is easy, you just go. But what about things like curiosity, authority, tragedy? Now, last year when I was in Japan, I got to walk through the Hiroshima Peace Park Memorial that Tange built. And at the time, I had no idea that this building was designed by Kenzo Tange. And it's kind of ironic that like something that was so tragic resulted in the beginning of someone's whole career.
4 years after the war, proposals for the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park were solicited. As a way to get over his grief, Tange entered the competition. He won and was entrusted with the project.
一つは、日本の伝統現代の建築技術の中にどうやって生かしていくかという問題であったわけですけれども。
Tange drew a line extending due south from the dome. At the end of this line, he built a museum raised on pillars, which would double as a gate to the park. Raising the building 6 meters above the ground was a powerful symbol of Japan rising above the devastation.
もう一つの問題は、この平和公園と会館って言いますのは、ちょうど広島市の地理的にも真ん中でございますし、たまたま爆心地でもあったわけですけれども。
Tange focused on a single structure, the atomic bomb dome. Many considered the ruin a hazard and called for it to be razed, but Tange wanted to make it a symbol of the horror of the atomic bomb.
Now, it's one thing to be able to understand a tragedy, but I feel like it's another thing entirely to empathize and feel the weight of what happened on that day for the victims and the people who lost their lives. But when I walked through the Peace Memorial Park for like the first time in my life, it kind of hit me. Like just the way it was laid out structurally with like the monuments and the museum and kind of like the very sombering walk up to the point where you see the atomic dome. It truly made me feel the gravity of what was lost. And that's when it hit me. Being able to make someone feel something without actually saying anything. Well, That's the point of architecture.
A career spanning 330 works began with the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park.
Kenzo Tange was a visionary.
Tange remains one of the best-known Japanese architects of all time in the whole world. His works are found in 31 countries and regions.
The Fuji TV building is like one of the last remnants of Metabolist architecture that you can still see if you come to Tokyo. You see, Tange left a legacy of modernizing Japan. But I don't even think he could have predicted how far that modernization was really gonna go. You see, back during Tange's time, modernism in Japan felt like it still had a connection to the human heart. I think Tange said it himself.
Upon accepting the Pritzker Prize in 1987,
Kenzo Tange.
Thank you very much.
Tange stated architecture must have something that appeals to the human heart. Nevertheless, the basic forms, spaces, and appearances must be logical.
I think why Tange's designs have stood the test of time is because at the end of the day, whether you're talking about modernism or Japanese traditional architecture or the combination of the two, at the end of the day, he was trying to appeal to the human heart. But when you look at modern Japanese architecture today, it's just like, what are we doing? Like, okay, like, what is that? What are those? It's a pillar. I'm like not even afraid. It's a pillar. They literally put it in the building AI generator and like make it as ugly and cheap as possible. And just, let's put it up. Let's build it. That's freaking modern architecture today. And I get it. Like, it's really important for designs to be cost-effective, practical. But I feel like architecture today is just like, let's build the most brick fucking basic ass building that's like the cheapest thing we could design and be like, yeah, we did it.
こう機能的っていう言葉がもう非常にこう支配的でしてね、建築は機能主義な建築じゃなきゃいけないと。で大体どういうことかってただ箱みたいなものに穴開けてですね、これが窓だと言ってたわけですね。そんな面白くないものはやりたくないっていうのが最初の考え方でしてね、日本の現代建築なんて衛星陶器みたいなもんだと、そういうのは建築じゃないと言って大先輩たちに叱られたことがあるんですよ。それはもう真剣に四角い箱に穴を開けたビルを真剣になって推進しておられた先生方いっぱいいたわけですから。
Like, just look at the difference between that building over there and that building over there. Okay, I already made a video last year about me complaining about modern Japanese architecture. But one of those buildings clearly has some design and thought put into it, and the other one is the brick. I don't even think that's a hot take, that's just a fact. It's like, oh, boo-hoo, the skyline has gotten too modern. No, what's disappeared is that modernism with a heart. People aren't trying to build buildings nowadays that speaks to people. It's just like, well, this was the cheapest thing we could have thought of. Let's build it. And I guess that's capitalism, yay! And I really hope other cities in the world don't decide to go down this path, because we're gonna go from Lego City as a meme to reality real quick. Cause like, is Lego funding these cities? Do they really need to build more city sets? Because that's what it feels like.
人に夢を与えるもんじゃなきゃいけないと思うんです。ただそのプログラムを解決するというだけじゃ建築っていうものはやっぱり世の中からこう必要とされないと思うんですね。その建築に入るとなんか特別な世界があって。
Architecture is supposed to be about, it's in a way like finding ways to empower people to influence their physical environment so that they can actually live the life they want to live.
でなんか日常の世界で体験できないような特別なものがそこに行くと体験できるっていった建築を作りたいな。
So in a way, architecture at its best is really the power to turn, to make the world a little bit more like our dreams.